Yo, what's up? Welcome to my first Diabarha tutorial where we recreate the trigger of Liberation track. We will speed up to 250 ppm and enter the world of really distorted and harsh kick drums. And in today's tutorial I will show you that you need only a Serum synthesizer to create such sounds. I will show you how to set up all the oscillators. I will teach you how to use the filter to give your kick drum sounds all the textures you want. You will learn how to use three crucial effects for kick drums: the equalizer, the multiband compressor and the distortion itself, which gives all grit to the sound. While this tutorial is mainly for terrorcore or speedcore music enthusiasts, if you are an industrial techno producer, you will find this video useful as well. My name is Marcin, I put out sound design tutorials every second Sunday. I mainly recreate tracks which are suggested by you and made by established producers. If you don't want to miss such videos, then subscribe to my channel. On top of that, if my YouTube channel is not enough, contact me for private music production lessons, which will give you a whole lot of new knowledge. Are you ready? Let's get to work. As you see, I have already prepared a new channel for this kick drum sound. I have loaded a Serum synthesizer with the initial preset and created a MIDI clip with basic 4/4 kick drum pattern. Let's hop up into the Serum and start tweaking the patch. We will use for this sound two oscillators, but for now I will take care of the first one. I want to use a wave table similar to a square wave, because such wavetables have lots of harmonic content. I can use the PWM mini wavetable for example. Definitely we don't want to use a unison functionality. It will make our kick drum sound wide, and we want to have a narrow sound, because then the kick drum is going to be more powerful. Instead of tweaking the unisono settings, I will take care of the wavetable position and the warping section. For now, both wavetable position and warping section are not that much important. We will return to these controls later once we add distortion to the sound. I will use now the first LFO as a pitch envelope, so I have to drag the LFO one tile towards the coarse control. We have to change the LFO curve from triangle wave to something reminding of a ramp wave. I will head to the matrix control to make this modulation unidirectional. We click the type icon and that's it. Now I can fine-tune the amount of pitch envelope modulation. If you add more of such pitch modulation, your kick drum is going to sound more like a laser. Currently, we have a very basic kick sound. It's time to add some kind of extra texture to it. For that, I will use the filter. In the fourth part of Klangkünstler tutorial, I told you my most favorite filters are in the MISC category. We will reach for this category again and pick a reverb filter type. I will bring the cut-off frequency control to a much lower point. This filter naturally transforms the whole sound. To blend this filter, I have to take down the mix control a bit. The distortion effect, which I will add later, is going to be much more sensitive and will work much better once the input signal is loud. I will use the drive control, which adds a few extra decibels to the kick drum before it reaches the effects section. We have two controls remaining, the filter resonance and the damping control. Usually in the reverb, the damping is indirectly telling the amount of high frequencies in the reverb. Because we are using this filter in a unnatural way, we are creating a distorted kick drum. Treat the resonance and damping controls as another ways to fine-tune the sound of the kick. That was my quick adjustment of the reverb filter type. But if you spend a few minutes fine-tuning the filter settings, you will end up with such a kick drum. Naturally, because of the drive used, our kick drum is much louder than the kick drum without the filter, but still you can hear that the character of the kick itself has changed a bit. Before passing the kick drum to the effects, I want to use a second oscillator to fill the sound of the kick drum even more. I will pick something from the Basic Shapes wavetable. We will pitch it up by 3 octaves. This will make the oscillator B fill a bit different frequency region. Not to mention that this oscillator B will then give us a much more interesting sound. I have already adjusted the volume of this oscillator B, but there's one more thing we have to do before we move on to the effects. I want to apply the same pitch modulation to the oscillator B. We have to assign the modulation again and hit the matrix tab to make sure the modulation is unidirectional as well. And we want to make sure that the modulation amounts in both oscillators are the same. You can hear that this kick drum is phasing a bit. What I mean by that is that each kick drum sounds a bit different. That is because the random phase is set to 100% in both oscillators. It means that these both oscillators are not synchronized with each other very well. I want to set the random phase to 0 in both oscillators. It's time to use the effects on the kick drum. The first part of the tutorial ends here. If you like this video so far, please hit the thumbs up button so I can get with this video to more people and beginner producers. You might want to share this video with your friends as well. This is the kick drum we have so far. You can see on both volume meters that we are redlining the mixer. Once we add the distortion or compressor, we will not surpass the 0 decibels ceiling. But in the beginning, I will use the equalizer effect. I want to use that so I can remove some mods in the lower frequencies region. I will set a bell filter type. I will add quite a lot of gain, lots of negative gain. I'm going now to sweep the frequency control to find the frequency region I want to cut. I will leave this filter as it is right now. If I go lower than 200 Hz, I will start cutting the low end from the kick, which I want to avoid. I also want to boost some narrow range of higher frequencies, which will give me more, let's say, crunch or spark to the kick drum. I will do a similar thing. Let's add quite a healthy amount of boost. Make the Q value a bit higher than before, and then I will sweep the frequency control to find a satisfying frequency range. That hiss we have added is too loud. To make it quieter, I will bring down the gain control. After the equalizer, I want to use a compressor to get more details, more sparkle out of the kick drum. With a current setting, the compressor treats all the frequencies in the same way. That is because this is a single band compressor right now. The second thing is that this compressor is applied before the equalizer. I want to change that and put the compressor after the EQ. What I will do now is I will hit the multiband switch on. The sound is split into 3 different frequency ranges. We have the high end, mid end and low end. All these 3 frequency ranges are treated a bit differently with the same compressor. For example, you can see that the yellow and green bars look different for each frequency range. The way how does the multiband compressor work is very complex, and this is not the subject of our today's tutorial. How can I adjust the compressor if I don't know how does it work exactly? Well, I will give you a few simple guidelines. The threshold control will affect the threshold of all frequency ranges. Once the threshold comes closer to 0 decibels, our sound is going to be louder and more juicy. The sound is louder because the threshold is lower. It means that the compressor will apply less of a gain reduction to the sound. Another thing which controls the amount of gain reduction applied by the compressor is the ratio setting. The 2 remaining controls which affect the compressor's behavior are the attack and release settings. They control the compressor's reaction times. In case of this particular sound, these 2 controls don't have much of an importance. You can use these controls to fine-tune the sound of the compressor. The last control is the gain control. You can use it to compensate for the difference in volume between the compressed and uncompressed kick drum. Let's listen now. How does this compressor change our kick drum? The last thing you can do to fine-tune the sound of the compressor is apply a different volume values to each frequency band. If you want to make the beginning part of the kick drum louder, so we want to make the kick drum more clicky, more punchy, I can attach the first LFO which I used to modulate the pitch to the threshold control in the compressor. I will use a subtle amount of this threshold modulation because my kick drum is already punchy. Last effect I want to use is the distortion, which is going to give me all the grit for the sound. I will place it as the last effect in our chain. You can see that the distortion, even with the initial settings, already gives us a different sound. Notice that our mixer isn't also redlining once the distortion is applied. The only thing remaining is to adjust the distortion character. We want to choose an appropriate distortion style and we want to set up the distortion amount with the drive control. In case you don't find any satisfying distortion algorithm here, we can throw our own distortion algorithm. This is what happens when I pick the X-Shaper distortion mode. In this one, we have the extra Edit A and Edit B controls available. Once we click any of these buttons, we will open a window where we can throw a curve. Now, what does this curve do? What does it have in common with the distortion? The distortion in the Serum synthesizer is a wave shaper distortion. In very, very short words, the curve, which is shown in this small window here, is applied to the waveform of the kick drum, which is passing through that distortion. This curve alters the original waveform, and that's how the distortion is created. So once we open this window, we can create a curve which alters the waveform of our original kick drum. How to draw an appropriate wave shaper curve? The only thing that I will say is that you have to experiment with various curves. From my experience, if you want to have a more brutal distortion, you have to apply a very edgy curves. You can hold the left Alt Control key while dragging any point, and this will make this point snap to the grid. This is the final curve I have created for this kick drum. This X-Shaper distortion algorithm allows you to create two different wave shaper curves. The drive control is going to morph between these two wave shaper curves. So when the X-Shaper distortion is selected, the drive does not just add more distortion. It blends these two wave shaper curves together. It's hard to judge what did the distortion do, because the sound after distortion is much quieter. So I will click the mix control, which will reveal the hidden level knob underneath. If you want to tweak this patch, what you can do? You can play around with different plugins order. Here I can add the oscillator B to the filter. I can also tweak the reverb filter type settings. Now every little change is going to transform the kick into something new. And the last thing, try to tweak the pitch envelope settings. If you want to change the settings of pitch envelope, you have to do it in both oscillators. Alright, this would be everything for today's video. If you like this tutorial, again, please hit the thumbs up button so more people can see this video. If you want to give me your feedback, drop it in the comments section. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to my channel to not miss them. In next 2 weeks, we will return to the techno music. We will look at a producer duo called Fractions. Thanks for watching, see you next time.